This is TWiT.
Hey, buddy, are you a geek? Are you a tech enthusiast? Then I would love to invite you to join a tech community like no other. You can gain exclusive access to our incomparable quality tech content for just $7 a month with Club TWiT. As a member, you'll enjoy all TWiT TV shows ad-free. Plus, access private video feeds for insider shows like iOS Today, Home Theater Geeks, and so much more. Dive into the members-only TWiT Plus bonus feed for behind-the-scenes content, club discussions, and special events. But here's the best perk. Join our incredible Discord community to watch live show productions, chat with hosts, and participate in exclusive members-only activities. It's your backstage pass to the world of TWiT. Whether you're a tech enthusiast or a lifelong learner, Club TWiT elevates your knowledge while entertaining your interests. Get 2 weeks free when you sign up now for $7 a month and unlock unparalleled access at twit.tv/clubtwit. That's twit.tv/clubtwit. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you and welcome to the club. It's time once again, club members. Hello, Leo Laporte here. It's time once again for Stacey's Book Club. Hi, Stacey.
Hello.
Your name's been coming up a lot lately. When we were in Tucson for the Gem and Mineral Show, I stopped calling it the Rock Show because my piano teacher said, and who did you see? What bands did you see? I said, no, not that kind of rock. We went down there, and you know who lives down there? Your colleague, Nicholas De Leon.
Oh, I was like, I also have another colleague who lives down there.
Oh.
But yes, Nicholas De Leon does live down there.
Well, we had a lovely dinner with Nicholas and his partner, Floyd. No, it's not Floyd. I call her Floyd.
I've never met him.
Oh, he's wonderful. And his SO is even more is wonderful. Lisa loves her. And I get, because I keep calling her Floyd, I forgot her name. But anyway, she's great. And so we had a lovely dinner down there. And of course, we talked a lot about you because you work for Consumer Reports now in policy, which is awesome. Have you written any good policies lately?
Gosh, I have actually written 2 really good things. And I should have them up, but I don't. Today, I just published something with one of my colleagues on a really boring, it's a really boring legal topic, but it's tied to the humane AI pin and the sale of its assets. Basically, the idea is like, we're arguing that structuring this deal as an asset sale really lets HP and Humane sidestep the obligation to on consumers who spent, and I know it's hard to feel sorry for people who spent $700 on an AI pin that we were all like, really, y'all? But it's kind of the principle of the thing. It's very similar to what happened with like Google buying Revolve and then shutting it down.
Right. It happens far too often.
Yeah. So we wrote about that. And then I actually did a really awesome post. Let me just get so excited. In February called, "Hey Siri, are you a zombie?" And that is,
I don't even need to know the rest of the story to love that one. What was that about?
This is the idea here is that we have all of these IoT devices that many of us have collected over like the last decade or so. And a lot of them have reached their end of life and they're not
zombified. Yeah.
So they're zombie devices. And we did this consumer research because Consumer Reports has a nationally representative survey. I was like, a really high quality survey.
I do that every year. It's a great survey. Yes.
Yeah. So
very
this
useful.
survey,
and they get hundreds of thousands of participants, I imagine.
Yeah. This one had like 23,000. I don't know. If you scroll down, it'll tell you. But, but basically consumers are buying these things. They have no idea that when software support ends, that affects the security or how their device might function.
Right.
And like, we had like, I think 55%, and that's like how long people think. Oh, yeah. How useful do you think your Amazon Echo is without an internet connection? Because 43% of people think it's going to be super useful still.
No, it's not going to do nothing.
Right. But this is a big deal, right? So we're trying to highlight that this exists.
People don't understand how these things, our audience does, but most normal people don't have, and of course our audience is not normal, do not understand how this stuff works. And they think it just works.
And that's not their fault. I mean, I don't think you're an idiot if you,
I called them normal for a reason. They're not.
Yeah.
they're normal people. It's the weirdos like us who understand the deep issues involved. Wow. Thinking about the following connected devices that you own, do you expect they will continue to be useful even after that software is no longer supported? That's different from no internet connection.
Right. So we are starting to argue because of this zombie issue and because these things that most of these things after they stop getting security updates, you should probably take them offline.
Yeah.
That's why this is a whole thing. So this is like what I've been working on. It's a lot of fun.
Great stuff. I'm so glad that they. I don't want to say hired you, but that
I'm a consultant.
Yeah, they would use you. Yeah. If any of your smart devices lost software support, how did you first find out it stopped working? Number one survey says. Number one response: it stopped working. A surprisingly large number of people actually got a notice from the manufacturer or saw it, and then a few saw it in the media. This is the one that. This is support, and then this is the one about how long would you expect it to be supported. This is really good. Yeah. I'm glad you do this work. And I presume you bring it to policymakers, yes?
So we are actually in hopefully a couple of weeks. I've written with some other groups, we've written model legislation that requires disclosure for connected devices. So we'll be releasing that soon. So that's
Good.
All of this is a lead up to be like, hey, look at the problem. Hey, look at the problem. Boom. Yeah. Here's a solution.
And then, of course, we can count on our legislatures to ignore you.
This will be these are state legislatures. We actually have pretty
states are better. Yeah. I mean, we know that Congress isn't going to do anything, but
I don't have a lot of faith there, but maybe. I mean, what is advocacy if not being just constant?
Yeah, you got to believe. I believe. You got to believe. That's the key. I believe.
Okay, that was so long, and we haven't even talked about the book, which was so much.
I'm putting it off because I haven't finished the book.
Okay, well, I finished the book. Look, and I got it from the library, so I can.
Oh, look, it's pretty. It's got a library binding. It's Micaiah Johnson, Those Beyond the Wall. Micaiah Johnson I'm sure it's Micaiah, probably Johnson, is a Brooklyn-based author and scholar. I'm reading her bio from her website. She received her bachelor's in creative writing from UC Riverside, an MFA in fiction at Rutgers. She received a doctorate. She's Dr. Micaiah Johnson at Vanderbilt. Her debut novel, The Space Between the Worlds, won the Compton Crook Award and was an editor's choice at the Times. NPR named it one of the best books of 2020 and one of the best science fiction books of the last decade. Maybe that's the one we should have read. I'm sorry, that's mean. This is a series, and actually, I downloaded both because it's a series, right?
It's a standalone, but they're standalone with like the same universe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I kind of wish I'd read the first one because I had a little bit of. I'm about halfway through, a little difficulty following it at first.
Getting into it was a little hard. Okay, so maybe we did this backwards. Sorry, you guys. I just went with the newest version.
No, that makes sense. And it is a standalone. And we should say, by the way, there will be two parts to this. I always have to do this disclaimer up front. The first part will be a spoiler-free discussion because Leo knows nothing. And the second part might have spoilers because Stacey read the book. We also invite you to participate. We have chats going on in our Club TWiT. And are there chats anywhere else? I guess we're streaming on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, X,
and
Facebook,
Joe did
LinkedIn,
join the meeting, so he has.
And Joe's in here. We love Joe. Okay. Always great to have Joe. So you could participate. But that's going to be a little bit later in the show. Let me finish the bio. Her follow-up novel, the one we read this time, Those Beyond the Wall, an eerily timely look at violence during apartheid. And it was a little dystopian and dark for me. It was released March of last year. In her academic work, because she's, I guess, a professor, she's concerned with questions of the intersection of race and technology. Very interesting. Particularly as revealed in 19th century America, a time punctuated by spectacular shifts in both the industrial age and, of course, Reconstruction. She also works in the neopolitical, here's a new word for me, necropolitical implications of preservation.
Wait, what? Necropolitical?
Necropolitical implications of preservation, both in the centuries past and our present moment of the sixth great extinction.
Oh, I read that book.
I did too. I thought it was fantastic. The premise being we've had 5 extinctions on the planet up to now, the dinosaurs and the asteroid and all that. There have been 5 of them, believe it or not. And of course, it's not full extinction, but folks are saying that climate change is likely to cause a 6th great extinction if an asteroid doesn't get us first. Anyway, Micaiah Johnson, our topic today.
Well, our author who wrote our topic.
Yes. But you've been part of the reason we did the book club is so you could choose new voices that are underrepresented. So she's like a black woman.
Sci-fi book club.
Pardon me?
The DEI sci-fi book club.
Yeah, the DEI book club, which we don't call it.
Stacey, we're gonna get canceled.
No, we do. We call it the diversion. The equity inclusion thing.
The way I think about it is I grew up reading Heinlein, Asimov, all of these other, and that's not to say that there isn't a place, but like science fiction in the last 2 decades has just blown up and encompasses so many more people, and their stories can be just beyond crazy fascinating, right? So that's, if you're writing an Asimovian, is that even a Heinleinian? I'm just making up words now.
Heinleinian, hello.
But if I want to move there's just so much more out there that's really fun to think about. And I don't know. That's just kind of the goal here. I got really excited because I started actively branching out into other areas, and I read some really amazing books. So
nice. Wonderful. I think that's a great thing because
otherwise we're reading about the Bobiverse all the time.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it. No, I completely agree with you because part of the reason anybody reads is to experience other lives, other points of view. I should take this hat off because now I'm getting serious.
Oh, okay. I'm ready.
No, but that's why we read, isn't it? You don't want to read to experience your life, your perspectives. I mean, some people, I guess, would like to be reinforced in their beliefs. I guess I do.
Read.
Everybody does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's different versions of, right? So I read because A, I love stories, but B, I read to experience a world that I don't know. So exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of us read science fiction is because we're interested in if this cool thing happens, or maybe it's not a cool thing, what are the implications of that? I think people who really like speculative fiction really like to speculate, right? We're just systems thinkers who like to go there.
That's a good point. And maybe that's one reason I didn't finish this because I'd read so much science fiction, and usually I don't want to read successive science fiction novels. Because I read as much to get into the inner space as outer space, And so books and by the way, a lot of people hate the books that I love, like The Possessions, because nothing happens. You're
going to love Orbital. You're going to love it so much.
Of life. I did start Orbital. I actually am enjoying it. But because I want to get in people's heads. And see, to me, reading is a chance to expand your life because you're going to have just what you have in your life, right? Your quotidian day. But by reading, you get to go to other people's lives, other people's experiences, and in sci-fi, into outer space and other timelines, and that's kind of fun too. But sometimes I just want somebody's mind. By the way, I have a picture of the author if you'd like to see it. This is from her Instagram. She's at a conference. Now, I do actually have a picture of her.
I was like,
without the cow costume.
I was like, is she in the cow costume?
She's in a cow costume. There she is for reals. And she looks first of all, adorable and very young, which is awesome because that means we're going to get a lot more from her. And she has a very strong, distinctive voice. Don't you agree?
She does. And so I will start off our spoiler-free section of talking about the book with, you're right, you guys, we should have read the first book first, or the initial book. And there was a lot of world building that happened in the beginning that was kind of, so I'm with you. I did struggle a little bit, and then I went back and read the other one. So
I wasn't uncomfortable with not knowing. I kind of turned into a Mad Max landscape for me, where there's a city and then there's people who live outside the wall of the city, and our hero or heroine lives outside the wall of the city with the Emperor Nick, who is
that whole, like, I was like, what? He's an emperor? And then I got it eventually. I was like, okay. And you're right. Mad Max is like exactly what I was thinking of the whole.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
It's dystopia, but it's a comic dystopia in some ways. It's also extremely violent dystopia.
Yes. Well, I mean, let's be real, right? I think when we get to this stage of the world, violence is the way. Like, when I was reading it, because I was reading it I read it 2 or 3 weeks ago. Just as like a lot of the Doge Trump stuff was happening. And I was like, this is both too close to home and very cathartic.
Yeah. That may be why I didn't finish it, actually. Because I was upset enough.
Yeah. And this is basically an us versus them. And the them is everybody who's the them in this case are people who are willfully obtuse to the struggles of people who apparently are darker, because there is a lot about skin tone in here. They talk about lightening up over time. So you've got darker, poorer people who worked in their factories that their revolution was they stopped working in the factories, shut those down, and the people in the city didn't. Basically, it's not even a subtle parallel or metaphor. It's like a direct, like, oh, I can totally apply this to all aspects of life. Anyway, so this is the scenario. And then there is, so this is the story of this woman whose name I am now forgetting. Mr. Scales.
Yeah. She says she's called Scales, not because she's got snake skin. Now, are we in the spoiler section? I guess not quite yet, but we're getting
not quite yet. I was just, the smelly thief. Yes, the thieves were so blunt, but sometimes that's fun because it was very plot driven as well, right? Like, you were like, yeah. And there was
I enjoy that part. Yeah.
Y'all, there was like, I actually wondered how y'all would take this, because in the book, there was a lot of emotional development and even a little bit of romance. Yeah. And I really like, how did y'all feel about that? Feel free to tell me, because I was caught off a little off guard, but
let me bring in
I didn't mind
the chat here. I don't know what we're going to see, but I'm going to take a chance. There we go. Whoops. There we go. Can you see that?
I can.
Yeah. I did like her writing style, says Brandroid. And then he scrolled right off, which was consistent across both books. It's very subjective. Yeah. Very much point of view, right? It's all in first person and captures really well people's perceptions can change with new information, and they can look back and see how they completely misunderstood somebody else's thoughts and intentions. I like that. I think you're right, Brandroid.
And I would say, I don't usually like first person books all that much. Like, I think it's a real challenge for me personally. But this worked for me.
Yeah.
But it did. I think that also first person books take me a little longer to get into initially. So that was a good point, Brandroid. I forgot that this was all first person.
Yeah. Wojo says, I found this was interesting and enjoyable read, not only because it continued the tale from the previous book. Again, I bought both, so I'm going to listen to both. By the way, the narrator's quite good on this and definitely has the voice down. But also because we got to see how the other half live in their lives in the world. Oh, in the city, probably. On a side note, it was good to have it explained why all the runners of both genders were called Mr. Is it
a spoiler? I mean, basically the concept is, because there's such a violent society and they're very respectful of people's genders. They just basically adopted everybody as a Mr. because it gives you a little bit. Yeah. It gives you a little bit of cover, like Mr. Scales is coming and you won't look for a woman because in their city, they're so gender focused, I guess.
It's addressing the pronoun problem.
Yeah.
Or the honorific problem, I guess, in this case.
Yeah. And in this way, it gives them an element of surprise when some lady pops up and you're like, I'm looking out for Mr. Scales. And she's like, I'm here.
Yeah, that was something that surprised me. Runners aren't just about running, are they?
Yeah, runners, like...
Whoa!
Runners are, like, that was one of the things. And that's what this really resonated again because of the time, because the whole idea is that they're basically saying, we are violent because we have to be violent.
We have a reason.
Because we are violent, we have learned how to curb and manage violence proportionately. Whereas in the city, their violence is done for them on their behalf by others who also are so nervous about being violent because that's not their default way and they've never had to learn proportionate response. Right. And that's kind of where we are today.
Yeah.
I mean, as a violent person or a person who's willing to go to violence if I need to, I really identified with that. Y'all can make fun of me. But
unfortunately, the Audible has both books, but the first one is read by Nicole Lewis, the second one by Angel P. And I haven't listened to the Space Between the Worlds yet, but let me play a little bit of Angel's narration because I think it captures the voice.
And lightning fast, he puts me in a headlock to rub my short hair with his knuckles. Little snake's jealous someone else has got tricks. Maybe. Ow, cut it out.
It really has. She's got the personality, right? You can really see her. And you immediately know she's black, by the way, which is part of it also, right? She's dark. And so I thought the narration was perfect. Although it did add to my confusion because it took me a little while to understand everything that was going on, but that's all right. That's all right.
It was a book that really dumped you in.
Yeah. In media res, as they say.
And the first book was a little like that too. It just, yeah.
I'm going to, you know what I'm going to do is I'm pausing Those Beyond the Wall and I'm going to read The Space Between the Worlds. These are books 1 and 2 of the Ashtown series. And I'm going to presume there's more coming.
Maybe. I mean, it is a pretty rich world.
Yeah.
I would come back to it.
It's a Mad Maxy kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So from y'all's, some Ozone Art Factory is telling me that I felt the romance elements were deeper than most books since the sexual element was basically put aside. So the personal connections were the important part. Yeah. And this, yes. Good. Okay. I was like,
it's not explicitly sexual is.
Yeah. I think there was a sex scene in there, but
yeah, I haven't gotten to that part, but that's good. That'll help me get further.
My eyebrows went straight up. I was like, oh no, what did I do here?
Look, you all are I'm not gonna say you're all grown-ups, but you're all adult enough to have some adult conversations. Yes.
Oh, Jammer B says he did think it was a romance novel.
Oh.
Okay, I'll tell you, I have read both romance novels and smut in my life. And this does not, I'll make that distinction. It's not like a traditional romance novel, but
no, God, unless romance novels have throat slittings and people exploding, I don't think it is. Do they?
No, but I do think it was a little more romance than like, you know how in every airport book, like, you know, like the Reacher series, right? Yeah. You know how he always has some weird, like Reacher's kicking butt doing things. And then there's like always this one woman who's like, he gets his one like off the page sex scene.
Right.
And you're like, really, was that, what is that for?
Yeah.
Because like,
it's completely gratuitous, I think is the word. Yeah. But these aren't gratuitous in this. This is a very emotional novel. I wouldn't say romantic, but I'd say it is emotional.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's the two Stacey, like, oops, I made you read the second book first. And there was a little bit of romance in there. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm a romantic. I love a little, I just watched Moonstruck. I love a little romance. Put a little romance in there.
Okay. Okay.
I am a romantic, you know, I always, I'm watching, even in movies, I'll watch and say, oh man, I hope they get together.
It's like, I think he's sweet on her.
Oh, they're so cute together. And I often go, kiss her. Aw. And then I go, aw. So you wouldn't know it to look at me, but I'm a romantic and I don't mind a little bit of that. And somebody's saying altered carbon. Good point. That was very much sexier. Yes.
Yes,
there was a lot of love, hate, love, hate plus love going on, says Jammerby. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and there was a lot of the hate plus love is an interesting thing because everyone really, you couldn't wear your heart on your sleeve. Like, so when you're thinking about the relationships like that the emperor had or with, there were very few like traditional wholesome relationships. And I think part of that was because of how violent everybody was.
Right.
And you also saw even inside the walls, the relationships, which we didn't see a lot of, but the one that I'm thinking of, are we spoilering yet or not?
Yeah, let's play the spoiler alert. I think Anthony sticks it in later. Okay. Speaking of romance, and thank you, Anthony. And then, and of course, if you haven't read it, as I haven't, I'm going to survive the spoilers. I don't mind a little spoilers. I'm not an anti-spoiler kind of guy. But if you do dislike spoilers, read the book and then come back. Because if you're a member of the club, this will be in the TWiT Plus feed forever after. And you'll be able to listen to it then. Now, go ahead and spoil it.
So inside the wall, the relationship I'm thinking of is her parents or the people who she lives with. She has this mythology that she came to Ashtown because her family was running across the desert as the sun was rising, and they hit the walls of the cities, and they wouldn't let them in before the sun rose, and her parents collapsed over her, and she made it because their charred bodies protected her from the sun. What we find out later is that she actually was the child of like a bigwig inside the city who was incredibly violent to her and abusive to her and to her mom.
Aye.
And so that's really one of the only relationships we see inside the city that I can think of. And that was also a violent relationship, but
not
because that violence was like encased by this respectability, this veneer of respectability and money, that it was all underground and, she was abused basically as a kid. Whereas in Ashtown, the relationships are still kind of violent or affected by violence, but at least it's out in the open and they're more just casual about it.
John does say, telling us right at the start that the stories don't need to be true, which is I heard it and I probably should have noted it more carefully. To be meaningful, set us up for more dramatic reveals. And I think he's right that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is a case, like part of like the macro wrapper for this is like the importance of stories, which I think is still true in our day to day as a journalist, I think about this all the time. What are the stories that we want to believe? How do we tell new stories to entice people away from their old beliefs?
Yeah.
And I think this book did a really good job of like bringing those two things together and showing how, if we're talking about like politics, optics matter, right? So they're like towards the end, one of the reasons they're doing some multiverse traveling in here. One of the reasons they find an avenue that works is because they sacrifice someone to tell the correct story. And by correct, I just mean the story that will save everybody. Which is like, as a journalist, I'm like, not that I really want to sacrifice anybody, but that's a really yeah, that's the power of stories. That's why we do this.
Yeah. And the power of truth. Yeah.
Well, subjective truth? Yes. Objective truth? No. Because the truth in that situation was actually a lie. So to get to the right story,
as Jim B said, it's the meaning that matters.
So, let's see. Are there people who want to share things?
Well, Wojo says, don't forget about the relationship between Kara and her wife, Dell.
Yes. And Kara was the star of the last book.
See, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Okay.
You're going to find her later. That's why when she joins, like everybody else got this like backstory and whatnot, but Kara's like, oh, and there's Kara. And everybody's like, oh, Kara. And I'm like, who the heck is
Why
Kara?
are you so excited about that? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we've got Joe backstage. Great.
Yeah.
Y'all,
Joe, you could bring Joe in if you wish. Do I do that? How does that happen? I think you have to do that, Anthony. I'm not in the...
Leo, we have to go like this.
Are you not logged into the...
Well, I am. I can go to the Discord. Should I go to the Discord?
No. He's in here in Restream. I toggled him on.
I went to color.
Oh my God, it's Joe.
Okay. Hello. Hi.
Now I see. I see where I can do it. Okay, thank you, Anthony. I wasn't paying attention. He's a source. Welcome, Joe.
Can you hear me right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you
okay.
great.
Okay.
What's up?
Sure. This was a great book. I don't care that I didn't read the first one. This book, I was thinking about this book for a little while after I finished. I just kind of sat there. This is a magnificently powerful book. I loved it. I really did, top to bottom. It's a great book.
Isn't that nice? A vote from Joe.
What did you like about it, or what resonated with you, I guess?
I think that it was very clear what the themes were, what was the point of the book was, what was being said. I think, interestingly, I read Orbital right before this one because they looked like they were going to be kind of competing, so I figured I'd read both. Yeah,
that's why I got it. I knew it was going to lose once the vote started shifting, but I thought, yeah, I should read both. Stacey thought they were both good.
And Orbital is very kind of essay-like, and all the glory of space and people working together and the planet below, and it's very ethereal and light. And then this is, let's just grind every miserable bastard under the giant wheels of a monster truck that is running on high-octane hate. And in this moment, I am there for that. So this was it was cathartic to see bad people get wiped out. So that was probably the best part. But I also just like how there's a lot of good setup and payoffs. Particularly, are we in the spoiler zone? We are, right?
Yes, we are. You may.
The truth juice, the way that was used late in the book, because they introduced it early, and then that's the big thing for the runner Cheeks, which I did not remember the truth juice. And so I didn't know what was happening until she explained it. And I was like, whoa, that whole scene is heavy. But to have it be an agonizing death on top of everything else, there's just so much weight to what's going on in this book. And I think it's handled really well without ever feeling like there's filler parts or that things are being covered over. Like the amount of anger, righteous anger, it's just drenched in it and it's earned. It feels appropriate. And so when they finally get to the end and they go to war, essentially, you're there with them. And I think that was my favorite part of it.
I'm going to read you, at the beginning, there's an author's note. And so the first paragraph is, when my agent, lists the agent, read the first draft of this manuscript, she said, accurately, I didn't realize how angry you were.
Oh, wow.
And and it was around her. She wrote this after participating in the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. So Lord knows.
She talks about that. Actually, the foreword talks about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what the next book of this is going to be, if it's driven by this, but you're right. It's incredibly righteously angry. And I think a lot of like science fiction books do elide over the role of violence and the hard choices that you have to make, even if you're a good character in a hard society, right? Like we see a lot of like white knights, and I don't think white knights are really what the world needs right now. And I think in a situation like this dystopia that they lay out here, a white knight would be absolutely ineffective. And I like how everybody is like super gray.
Well, I'm going to go out and buy a gun. I don't know about you, but I'm scared now. Jeez Louise.
Well, but it's never cruel. That was the thing I think was remarkable, is there's a fine line between violence and cruelty. And it was over and over, there was an emphasis on the cruelty was done to these people. And this is why the response is appropriate.
They respond with violence, yeah.
Right. So it could, nobody's glorifying what they're doing. Nobody's happy about it. They feel that it's justified, and there is joy in finally being able to pay people back for pain that's been inflicted. but it's not just violence for celebrating violence sake. It's not torture porn, which it could have easily delved into.
I felt like it was justice, right? And justice is not always like a nice lady, you know. Let's see. Wojo said, oh no, not Wojo, sorry. Wojo, you're fine too. Smelly Thief did not like some of the too magical aspects, like truth juice and the magic goo that lets Scales see past future. Yeah, the black hole goo, what I was kind of like, okay. I don't know what that's about. I can't remember what it was called, but I was like, I guess that was Deus Ex black hole. Deus Ex chemistry is what I'll call it.
To some degree, Stacey, I'm curious what your opinion is. I feel like to some degree, the actual narrative is sort of secondary in this book. It's there because you have to have a narrative, but the real point is to express the feelings of these characters and what's been done to them and how they're reacting to them. And so, yeah, the Black Goo Cave and the magical, doubling ghosts. I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine, but it didn't feel like to me that's the story that's being told. The story is, at some point, you can only be harmed so much and you're going to respond. And this is what the response is going to look like. That's what it felt like to me anyway.
And most of the response, I mean, it did feel like the people coming in from the multiverse to driving the plot was totally secondary to the fact that we have these characters in this just untenable situation. So what will happen? And the multiverse was kind of like the pressure cooker part of it, where that's just creating the pressure cooker, and you're like, now how is everybody going to react to this? And that was what the book was about. So you're right. I did like that, but yeah.
Aunt Pruitt has visited. It's great to see you. And he did not read the book, but he says he's going to listen to it. He says angry. This is interesting because Aunt is a black man who could easily be very angry, who intentionally, I think, heads towards kindness and calmness. And he says angry could be turn off, but it sounds like it's more of a justified kind of book. Yeah, Justified's a good example of justified anger. Yeah. Aunt, read it. I really want to know what you think about it because, you have a more standing, frankly, to talk about it.
Actually, Ant's the first person I thought of to recommend I was going to record because I'll tell you, I send him messages all the time, and I was going to say, you must read this book. You must read this book because I want to know what you think of it. Because you're right. I want somebody else's perspective who's closer to this.
Yeah.
To tell me what they think. Because it's one thing for me, I can only connect to this material so far, even if I do understand everything that's being said and share the anger and see the injustice. I can only go this far because my life experience doesn't allow me to go further. So that's the person that I want to hear from. These are the people I want to hear from as far as how they connect to it, because I think it'll be a lot more.
I would say based on Ant's feelings about other books that we've read, that I don't know. I'm like, I am interested. I would never have sent this to you, Ant, because I don't think.
Ant did not like the first few books I think you put in the book club, as I remember.
Ant, yeah, I think Ant likes more feel-goodish books.
Feel goods,
and also,
and
also plot.
By the way, that's the other way to respond to prejudice and violence is to go the other direction. To go to the Martin Luther King direction of nonviolence and love. You don't have to, and that's kind of my inclination as well. Is you don't have to become. Even if you're oppressed, you don't have to become violent. Now, I've never been.
He was making a
oppressed.
Strategic choice.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he was. I don't think he was choosing love because he just was like.
No, he wanted it to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Gandhi, he wanted it to work. Yeah. He says he just doesn't like the dadgum geeky bites and bits. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and this is a world that's kind of far away. So that was the other.
This
thing,
isn't super. I wouldn't. There's no. It's more. Somebody was saying it's more fantasy than it is a science fiction. I mean, it isn't hard sci-fi by any means, right?
No. Yeah, and I have a hard time with the distinction sometimes with sci-fi and fantasy because some books will have elements of both. and actually, if you think about it from a sci-fi, a lot of these people are so technologically beat down. Is the multiverse fantasy, or did we invent science that got us there? Right? Like they portray Adam Bosch, one of the main characters, as being like a cybernetic kind of dude, which is like super sci-fi. But yeah, then they're like, truth juice does feel a little bit more magical. Like, yeah, I don't know.
I really feel like only the Black Goo Cave and the multiverse, and it's small parts again of the book. And I think that's there because you have to set up the kind of how do we resolve all this, and the secondary universe gives you that ending where you can kind of do something so big and over the top, and then have a reasoning for it. So yeah, I wouldn't call it fantasy. To me, it's near future science fiction because, at some point we'll probably have prosthetics, cybernetics, that type of thing. I don't think it's that far out. The magical cave of Black Goo that lets you see every possibility in the future. Yeah, that's probably not coming anytime soon. So that's the most far out idea.
Yeah, it reminded me more of the Water
story.
Knife, a previous book, than of the sci-fi books like Orbital. I mean, it was really near future dystopia and the violence that it breeds.
That's a good question. Like, that's one of those things, like, as I read and as we bring in kind of diverse voices, and I say diverse because it's not the like in the 60s, sci-fi was all about, like, we're excited because we're going to the moon, rockets, we're going to space. Yeah. And now it feels like our vision of like, if we take all the science that we've come up with today and push it forward, it feels pretty dystopian in Black Mirror. Like, I struggle to find books that are science fiction that don't take us in a dark direction, possibly because the society that, like, I mean, almost every science fiction book I read is like.
I noticed that, Stacey, and I've been meaning to talk to you about that.
Are there, like, I would love to hear from you guys. Like, this is me abdicating my role.
The Bobaverse is very positive. Well, it's.
Oh my God, the Bobaverse.
See, I don't, there's a debate in the world. There's the Steven Pinkers of the world who say, what are you talking about? We live in the best possible world. It could not be better. And it's true. I mean, in many ways, you've got running water, a toilet, and you're living to more than 33 and your teeth aren't rotting out. There are some superior features to our modern world. And maybe we focus too much on the negatives. Maybe it isn't a dystopia. It's just, I don't know, we're a little spoiled.
And I will say there's this whole cli-fi, climate fiction, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what the Water Knife was.
That's what the Water Knife was. I just read another, like, I end up reading a lot of that, partially because that's what a lot of, like, I'm looking at newer books, but yeah, I don't know, you guys.
And the fact that Johnson talks about the sixth extinction on her website tells you a little something about what she thinks is a coming.
Well, and I don't think if you're writing speculative fiction, that's one of the most interesting kind of.
Is it?
Well, okay, it's man versus nature, but nature has turned into a different character. So it's basically something totally new. Like, if you think about the main plot points, right? Man versus himself, man versus nature. This is like a whole new category of man versus nature where nature turns into a completely different character almost, right? I don't know. That's how I think about it. I could be wrong. Y'all, feel free to argue.
I wonder if this is a personality issue. Like, some people.
Are you calling my personality an issue?
No, because you're a very positive, upbeat person, but you like to read the darkest stuff. So, and I think that may be just a personality trait that I would prefer to read about how everything's going to work out in the end.
I did those the cozy books, and you hated them.
They were too cozy. They weren't realistic. That's the problem.
Oh, you want realistic books where
it's really gonna work out. It's funny. We've renamed. I think you probably know this week in Google to intelligent machines, and we focus now on AI. And the same thing. There's the same dichotomy in the AI world between people who think everything's going to go great and it's going to be amazing. And people say, oh, this is the worst thing ever. And I tend to be on the side of this is exciting and fantastic.
we didn't read it, but have you read the Ancillary Justice series? If you want to read about AI, that's
yeah, it's on my list because of you. It's definitely in the pile. I have a lot of reading to do these days.
Maybe we should pull back.
Maybe that should be no, I'm not saying
not pull back from that. Sorry. Maybe we should go try that one out.
Yeah. Joe, where do you come down on this? Do you like dystopian dark stories, or do you like to mix it up?
Well, I generally would not say I'm the most optimistic person about the future, but I do tend to seek optimism in the entertainment. So I don't, and particularly with movies, I don't like watching downer movies anymore. At this point,
you sent me Stalker, Joe.
Well, okay, I know. There are exceptions. I sent it to Ant too, and Ant, to his credit, tried. He got 20 minutes in and gave up, and I don't blame him. I know but I understand. I'm not saying that I'm not full of some contradictions. It's true, but I do enjoy books like this because I think there is this weird counterpoint to it where books like this, where there is so much anger, it makes me stop and think, yeah, this is what we don't want to get to. Hopefully people read this and understand that this is the end point if it just keeps going.
So you see these cautionary tales, not.
Well, I mean, if you can't see it that way, then there's no point in anything. It's all over. So you have to look at stuff like this and look at it as warning signs to say, do we want to be in the worst possible result? I mean, not everybody's going to get that out of it. Some people are just going to, like Water Knife. I couldn't make it through. That was too miserable. I stopped. I was like, this is too much. Like, I don't want this. And I jumped back to Asimov because as they said that older stuff, it's like, oh, the robot's stuck in a loop, but we'll get him out. And he's still smiling and everybody's fine. So I kind of have to alternate. But I think
for a long time, science fiction really was about the better future that awaits us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe it is because of the world as it is today that a lot of it now is about the worst future that awaits us.
Yeah, and you can't hide it because I think that was a failing before too, is those optimistic times, there were lots of people left out. And that's the same thing where people say, well, we're in the best possible time you've ever been in. Yes, if you're included, but if you're not, you're still not. And so we have to make sure that people don't get forgotten. And so stories like this and books like this have to remind you that not everybody is cruising at the high end of the wave. There are people who are just getting washed under. And eventually, when you back people into a corner, this is how people will respond when they have nothing left to lose. So let's not get to that point, I hope.
Yeah. Now I'm rethinking the books that I brought. I'm like, I should find some happy books.
It's not easy because I can't.
Oh dear, she's done it again.
I can't think of a happy science fiction book, a modern one that I've read. I'm trying, and they all are kind of either middle of the road or downers.
We read the one. Oh,
Adrian Tchaikovsky was happy, fun and happy, but it was a downer.
Yeah, I was like, that was not happy. The
Project Hail Mary, that's positive. Yeah, I think
Service model
Andy
ended.
Weir's books tend to be on the positive side. Yeah.
Yeah, they're man versus nature and
triumph. Yeah,
and
man
triumphs.
triumphs.
We read that book about oh gosh, what was it? It was on another world. And sorry, that was let me help you.
And there was the tunnels and everything with the lava.
The tunnels underground. It was an eco kind of book.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was called, but it was good. It was a good
Before
book.
my time.
I felt like
can't remember, but it was a good book.
Well, let me
A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet.
No, it's by Charlie Jane Anders' partner, whose name I'm just totally blanking on because they wrote Autonomous.
Annalisa.
It's the other Annalise, or not the other.
I know who you mean. Newitz.
Okay, I'm gonna find their other novels and I'll tell you which one it was.
I mean, Kaiju Preservation Society was also it wasn't that heavy.
But yeah, Scalzi's stuff is pretty much
lighter. Yeah,
I think he has a new book coming out. I could look for that. Something about the moon being made of green cheese. Terraformers. That's what it was.
Yeah, and that was in L.A. News. Yeah, I think Scalzi's not a great writer. I know that's sacrilege.
It's kind of
pop fiction.
Yeah. Although I really liked the Locked In series.
Yeah, I haven't read all the stuff, so I
Hey,
can't.
pop fiction's okay too. Like I said, you need something after you have an entire city get wiped out and children get ground under a monster truck. Then I'll take pop, please. Give me something.
Well, we are getting. It's about 8 minutes left, so we're getting to that point in time where we should probably start thinking about.
All right.
Let's see. We have a long comment here. Let me just put this in here. This is from Jammerby, which Jammerby, we miss you so much, used to do this. He would print out excerpts from the book and bring them up. Yes. He says, this is a particularly fun paragraph. Quote, this is something I should tell you outright. I can work for a murderer because I am a murderer, but I cannot work for a man who would lock someone in a room for days in their own filth because I was that too. I stopped reading, Jammerby says, thinking was that deliberately ambiguous? I reread it, and yes, it was written ambiguously. One of the reasons I prefer reading to listening. That's true, Jammerby. It's always difficult to, you have to rewind if you're listening, and I sometimes do miss details like this.
And that's cruelty line. That's what I'm talking about. That's the line that, man, this book comes right up to and never crosses.
Yeah, I'll finish. He says, and my curiosity was rewarded, quote, from the book, I said that like a riddle, didn't I? Was I the man who locked someone in a filthy room for days, or was I the person locked in? And then Jammerby says, and it got even better, quote, I'll tell you for free that I was not the man who did the locking, but I wasn't always the person who'd been locked in either. Some days I was the room, others the filth. Oh, wow. Heavy, man. John's very good at finding the juice in these books.
He's a good reader.
John. Yeah, he's a very good reader. And he has nothing else to do now, so he should be doing a lot of reading. He is our former studio manager, now retired, living in the great Pacific Northwest with his kitty cat.
Oh, wait, you live up here, Jammerby?
Yeah, he lives near you. Well, I don't know if near you. I think he lives in Washington State.
All right, we'll connect offline over that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to give you guys your book choices.
All right, Anthony, get your pen ready, poised.
This one, just stick with it, okay? It's actually from the 70s, so I'm going back.
I like that. My time.
So it is The Word for World is Forest by Ursula Guin.
Oh, Le Guin? I like reading her stuff, although I know she's somewhat problematic these days, but good. Okay.
Do you guys want me to throw y'all Parable of the Sower? Has everyone read it?
I haven't.
No. You haven't read Parable? Okay. We're doing Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. Another 70s book. You guys are going to read these and be like, what is happening?
But these are alternate voices still, which I like. That's good.
And then Parable of the Sower. It's kind of heavy. And then the parallel to that will go with a newer book. And it's called All the Water in the World. And all of these have a very similar theme in the sense that they're all environment. The environment and environmental degradation is a character in all of these books, is a way to think of that. I'm sorry, everything is so climate related. But you know what? In
everything
a lot of
is climate related.
I mean, if you think about it, a lot of the impetus for people going into space is climate related. So, that's just a different. So, The Word for World is Forest takes place on another planet. It's a colonizing kind of story, like a planet being colonized story. Parable of the Sower is going to be incredibly related to the wildfires. So this is the future from back in the 70s that we are actually living in today. So that's kind of fun. And All the Water in the World is a near term. Imagine did we read Station 11?
Not that I know of.
I read it. I mean, not for this, but I read it. Wow.
If Station 11 was not caused by a plague, but instead by sea level rises, That's kind of what All the Water in the World is like. It's written by an Irish author who is very literary, but still there's a plot. But I'm just going to warn you now. That book is kind of hard to get. It's not hard to get through, but like you're going to want to take it slow and be like, oh man.
Do you want to comment on the warning that you gave on Orbital and how that affected the voting last time? Because that was very interesting. You said, oh, you're not going to like Orbital. And as a result, it was easily leading the votes. Yeah, and then at the very last day of the voting, Johnson shifted over.
Maybe someone like did some social media or something and was like, everybody do this. I don't know. Like, I mean,
you should still read Orbital.
You should still read Orbital. I think you should read it instead of listen to it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's like, to me, that's a book that it has beautiful language and it puts you in this like trance-like state where you're like, yes, thanks, literature.
You know what? I think I did, in fact, buy it on Kobo because of that. Because I felt like, oh, I should be reading this. Yeah. Yeah, it's more poetry. Yeah,
I don't know how to describe it. I'm just going to go with literary. But
now Brandroid has a great question. Are any of those light and fun? No. Oh boy. Hey, we gave you Scalzi. Come on now. Come on.
Okay, hold on. I'll find a.
No,
let me
look,
go back
see,
and look at all my
the apology's not necessary. Your choices add to my alternative reading list, says Spud to like.
You know what's a great alternative?
Spud you like, sorry.
Malky, what's her name? I put them in and nobody ever read them, but Malky Holder.
No, we got our 3. This is good. And I also want to say we're going to give you more time because thank you, Joe, by the way. I don't mean to phase you out, but I'm phasing you out. Okay.
Phasing you out.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Bye, Joe. Thank you so much. Always great. Thank you for doing a great job filling in for me because I didn't read the book and I'm a bad person, but I'm gonna. It's Le Guin, by the way, with a G, not a Q. So
Le Guin.
Yeah. The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler.
Sower.
Yeah, I don't think it's Sower. Well, that would be a way to spell sower, but we're talking Sower, right?
Yes.
Not the Parable of the Sower. But I appreciate your effort, Wojo. If you hadn't taken those notes, I think we'd. And All the Water in the World, is that correctly spelled?
That's by
Caffell.
Erin Caffell. She's actually I think a hydrologist in Ireland.
Oh, I think hydrologists should write more books. We're going to, of course, put this in the poll in the event. Where do we put that? Do we put it in events?
It'll be in announcements.
In announcements. Okay.
How long should we? Let's see.
No, not too long, because people were worried that
2 weeks.
We gave them too many weeks. 2 weeks is plenty. I think because we gave you so much time is why the vote changed.
Maybe people started Orbital and they were like, never mind.
Yeah, someone in the thread, someone was talking about Orbital, something, I think.
Yeah, I think I might have also said, oh, look, Orbital's winning. You have 1 day left to change your mind.
Okay. Now I know why it's
silly. No, I was just being silly. I was. Ozone Art Foundry, Joe says, thanks for the recommendation on Ting. I picked one up and I love it. I'm not sure what he's talking about.
Oh, that's the circuit monitoring device that measures how.
Oh, yeah.
It looks for arc fires.
Very cool.
Basically.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to sneeze.
And don't forget, says Wojo, even if you don't limit the voting time, you are still giving more time to read. Yes, we are giving you an extra month this time to read.
And none of these books are long, so hopefully that helps you. I think, and I'll just let you know, The Word for World is Forest is it's a number 2 in a series, but it stands alone just fine. Don't yell at me, y'all, if you like. It's not my fault. It's science fiction. Like all these people are like, I can't tell my story in one book. No,
I know. And I wish they honestly, I almost wish they wouldn't do that because it's just.
Yeah, when I see there's only 1 and 2 books, I'm like, I'm going to have to wait. I can't read that yet.
Yeah.
It makes me sad.
Yeah. What should be our next Stacey's book club? Those are the 3 books now properly spelled. Although I would like to read The Parable of the Sower at some point.
I'm like, I mean, that has some good options.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, these are 3 good books. I think this is great.
We never got these, but if y'all are looking for something happy and light and maybe cozy science fiction, this is actually like cozy science fiction plus a mystery.
Yeah.
There's an author, her name is Malka Older, and she does these murder mysteries. There's an investigator on Jupiter who's like solving crimes. So that's fun.
Ant will like this. Ant, this is for you. By the way, I didn't realize this. Ant says he usually ended the votes on day 8. So we are giving you an extra week to vote.
See?
I think 2 weeks is a good amount.
Yeah. And that book is the first in that her books is The Mimicking of Known Successes. These are short. They're cute. They're friendly. They're like murder mysteries in space.
Anthony says, give us 3 months. It doesn't matter because we're going to wait till the last week anyway to read it, which is kind of true. No, I've had this book for a long time. You know, when I put it down, I'll pick it up again, is when they talk about the mother who slit the throat of her child. And I said, nope, not going there.
In this book? There was a mom who slit her kid's throat?
It was a parable. I don't think it really happened.
Oh, I was like, I missed
untrue
that
stories
now.
that mean something. I hope. Yeah. And then she said, Wiley City is the bad guys. Nick is the mother. And we runners are the children or something like that. I can't. Or no, we're the knife. Anyway, it was a parable.
Did you not read Toni Morrison with you remember, was it The Bluest Eye or Sula?
Yeah, no, I'm bad on this stuff. I gotta read more.
I don't know if you do. I mean, now it's
literature.
not like I alternate between this and I'm currently reading like these 18th century.
That's good. Love those
murder mysteries. Just to get away from
too
it much.
All. Yeah.
This.
Unfortunately, what's happened to me is I'm back in school because of intelligent machines, and I have to do a lot of AI reading. And what's really unfortunate is you never catch up because it changes from week to week.
Have you read their 40, what is it, 20 on 20? I think it's Ted Chiang or Ted Lieu. I'm like, which one is it? It is Ted Lieu, I think. Yes.
Okay.
No. Is it Ted Lieu? Okay. There's a book called, it's like 2040 or 4020. It's basically, it's a series of like, it explains AI issues. And then there's a short story to goes with it.
Oh, that's cool.
Really good. And I'm trying to.
That would be good because we are looking for people to interview. Yesterday we had Stephen Wolfram, who was fantastic. If you haven't yet watched Intelligent Machines.
I did see that Stephen, I haven't watched the thing, but I saw Stephen and I was like, I used to edit his stuff and he is a very deep, dense thinker. I really enjoy him.
Really marvelous. Where were you editing his stuff?
At GigaOM.
Oh, he wrote for GigaOM?
Yeah.
Oh, I
just like guest columns every now and again. Yeah. I always enjoy it. But I'll tell you,
amazing.
like,
but yeah,
he would turn in like, I'm like,
it's work.
Oh,
yeah. He's kind of a genius. I'm thinking some people pretend to be a genius. I think he actually is a genius. And then Ray Kurzweil is in 2 weeks. Gary Marcus next week. We're booked out for weeks, and there's so much interesting stuff to talk about.
Oh, you need to get the lady from the University of Washington. One, because you can't have all men.
Margaret Mitchell.
Yes.
No. Yeah. Yeah. We're trying to get Timnit Gebru and Margaret Mitchell on. I would love to get them both on.
Hillary Mason might be a good person.
She would be great. We've got Emily Bender, I think, is coming up. So yes, we don't want to, of course, just have men.
All right. Well, guys, hopefully you have lots of book recommendations. Thank you for reading with us.
Yeah, so much fun. Thank you, Stacey, for spending some time with us. It's so nice to catch up with you, and thanks for all the good work you're doing for all of us IoT sufferers.
There you go.
Yep. We do Stacey's book club. We're going to do it every quarter now to give us time to read and Stacey time to work. And so we'll be back in a few months. We'll let you know ahead of time with the schedule. But meanwhile, Club TWiT members, go to the announcements page, cast your vote for the next book. You have 2 weeks to do so, and then we will let you know. We've got a lot of things coming up in the club. We are getting kind of busy, and there's lots of events. The AI user group is something new we're going to do. Anthony Nielsen is going to do this. We'll do this in the club, the Discord stage. So tomorrow at 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern, the AI user group, Anthony Nielsen and I, and anybody who's using AI to do something interesting, join us and we'll have a nice conversation. Also coming up, Micah's Crafting Corner on the 19th. And
I love that show.
I know, it's cozy. That's why you love cozy. It is very cozy. March 6th, next Thursday, Chris Marquardt's photo time. You still have 1 week to take a picture illustrating the word or concept bold and then uploading it to our Flickr group. And we'll be doing those pictures in a week. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our club members. You guys really rock. I appreciate everything you've done. And we hear you. We have some input from club members about things that we are listening to you, and we, you know what, we'll be responding in many ways. I don't know what that means. I just should not have said anything at all. We hear you, okay? We hear for you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon and a great evening. Thank you, Stacey. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.